So nice to see so many familiar faces. I know COVID has kind of ramped things down. People were just hanging out at home. And so now you're in person. So thank you for coming. So we'll jump into things. So I want to start off this guy over here, Mark. So Mogul, we always talk about live well, work hard, play hard. And if you can tell from this beautiful glow, we just got back from Maui. And Mark from Field Law, he's one of our power team members. He actually told me at last Mogul Mastermind, he's like, you know what? You won't see me until I come back with a nice glow. I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Maui. I'm like, oh, no way. When are you leaving? He's like, the 6th. I'm like, no way. I leave on the 8th. And then we ended up finding out we were, for the last part of our stay, we were staying at the same hotel. So we took the kids out and we did our lovely father duties with our kids or with our sons on our chest. And we actually had the same flight home. So anyways, I thought that was fun to point out. And if you guys ever want to talk about real estate law, he's a partner with Barry McGuire. So chat with him at the networking break. So what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to continue pushing this forward in every Mogul Mastermind event. So this is our website. So if you guys want to take a note down, this is mogulrg.com. That's our website. So mogulrg for Realty Group.com is our website. If you go into the Mogul Mastermind tab, there's a tab that says Mogul Mastermind, and then there's a highlight for investor education. You'll find this. This is what we call our Edmonton investor map. Okay. And we did this about 5-6 years ago, where we highlighted specific locations in the city. And if you take a look at the left part, so when you click on a specific area, we have a video here. So James did a video about 5 or 6 years ago, and we have a key description, we have key drivers, we have tenant profiles, typical pricing. So, you know, a lot of things can change in 5-6 years. So we're going to be updating each portion, every Mogul Mastermind, of a different area. So today we are going to be talking about Millwoods. So Millwoods is, quite interesting. There's a lot of conversation about Millwoods. It's been talked about for a long time. James actually grew up on the golf course in Millwoods. I think Manpreet, Devon would be considered in Millwoods. So there's quite a few people within the Mogul realm who are in kind of the Millwoods area. One of the biggest things that people don't really know about Millwoods, they call it a community, they kind of call it a neighborhood, but it's actually a district. So anytime people have conversations about Millwoods, a lot of the biggest things that they talk about doesn't really relate. Because if I'm thinking Greenview or Hillview and somebody's thinking Pollard Meadows or Crawford Plains, we might be thinking of two really different communities. So we're debunking the fact that Millwoods is not just a community and a neighborhood. It's actually a full district, and it's actually 51 square kilometers. So it's a very, very big space of Edmonton. You guys remember this? Who's been in Edmonton long enough to know the bad rap about Millwoods? Call it 15, 20, 25 years ago. So crazy stuff. If you guys remember the times, or you even Google it, there was things that, there was drive-by shootings and Molotov cocktails, and it was like, whoa, what's going on there? It was kind of like when Edmonton got Deadmonton, because we had the highest murder rate in all of Canada. That's kind of what happened in Millwoods. They called it Killwoods. But the crazy thing, and this is where it really was unfortunate for Millwoods as a whole district, was that anytime the media talked about it, they didn't highlight the neighborhood. They actually just said Millwoods. So we looked back at that map, and it's like, okay, well, if it happened at the bottom parts, doesn't mean that it's being affected in the top left part. So it had a negative rap. And when we look back at what happened, it was actually pretty crazy. There was two gangs that were basically competing for some territory, and they actually lived only 6 blocks away from each other. And so they would just constantly retaliate with each other. And at one point, they put a hit. One of the leaders put a hit on the other one. He got shot and got killed through the hit. And then, he got charged and he's in jail right now. So that kind of really de-escalated the situation. And, over the last little bit, things have looked a lot better in Millwoods. Millwoods is, about average for crime rates, about average in city average for everything. So if you ever talk about Millwoods, you talk to somebody from Edmonton and it has that kind of negative connotation, that's usually why. So let's talk a little bit about the stats. So we said that Millwoods is about 51 square kilometers. Population is 125,000 people. So it's very large, a lot of people there. There's a steady migration of people coming into Millwoods, and that's huge for, Devin pointed out in his slides that migration, they're talking about people leaving Ontario and coming to Alberta. And there's a large population of people coming into Millwoods. So that's really good as a tenant, or sorry, as a landlord looking for tenants. And they also have a very strong median household income. So $96,000, that's pretty good. You want to make sure your tenants are paying their rent. You want to see what sort of income they're bringing in. So pretty good numbers when we take a look at it. All right, tenant profile. So, your tenants, kind of like your employees of your business, you really want to make sure you have a good, solid tenant profile. So what are we going to be attracting in Millwoods? Well, we're going to have a range. If you ever drive through Millwoods, most of the communities will have a fairly diverse type of properties. We're going to have townhouses, half duplexes, suite homes. We're going to get into that a little bit, but they range from different types of price points and types of tenants that are going to be looking there. So we're going to have low to middle income, and then we have in some communities a little bit of middle to upper income as well. Very, very diverse demographic. So that's really good. Again, you can cater to different types of things in your properties to different demographics, things like that. We have working class people, families, blue collars, temporary workers, people who come to the hospitals, new Canadians. And one of the biggest things that we're looking for as a landlord is trying to find tenants that are going to be there long term. And so we're going to get in that a little bit further, but Rebecca and I actually have 3 suited houses in Millwoods in a couple of different communities. And when we take a look at the demographics of individuals that we have, most often we have people in that 20 to 30 range, and they're typically, they just finished trade school. Most of them are blue collar, making pretty good income. They're just, it's that first step of finishing school and then moving into it. One just found out that they just had a baby, so a younger couple. And then in our basements, we typically find we have single individuals, between the 50 and 60 range. They're kind of gearing up for retirement. They wanted to downsize, something that they wanted a nice type of property, but they didn't want to spend too much on their rent. So what are our key drivers? So we've been talking about the South Valley Line LRT for probably since Mogul Mastermind started. As many of you know, I think I talked about it last week or last Mogul Mastermind. So with any municipal project, we're typically over budget, probably delayed. Well, no different on this one. So the South Valley Line LRT was supposed to be done a couple of years ago. They were running the line up and down the tracks, just testing everything, and they noticed some cracking in the pillars. That delayed things. We had to get engineers out there. All these things happened. And so they filled the cracks, they figured it out. And now they said, we're going to test the track. hopefully for 4 to 6 months, we're going to see things come back, and the LRT line is going to be in full effect. So that's been really popular for the Millwoods area. If any of you guys were past RAIN members or RAIN members, they always talk about the transportation effect. So there was a study done a couple of years ago, and what they found was if you're within about an 800-meter radius of any given LRT or transit stop, you typically will appreciate between 8 and 12% within the first 2 years of it being in operation. So a lot of investors have been targeting, that general area. For Rebecca and I, we didn't necessarily target, we weren't so specific that we had to be within that 800-meter radius, just somewhere close that it can see the benefit. People are going to want to be able to use that transit. Next is the proximity to the South Edmonton Common. So one of the largest, open shopping centers in Edmonton. You have huge places like IKEA. You have Canada's largest Canadian Tire. So a lot of shopping, a lot of workers that come to that general area, and it just borders, Millwoods, right on the outskirts. So a lot of people who are going to be working in that general area will typically be living in Millwoods or in and around that area. Brainon's Hospital, one of Edmonton's hospitals, obviously looking for good tenant profiles is always good. So having some temporary workers or people who are coming in for a couple months to work, great tenant profile to be in that location. Next is Millwoods Town Center Mall. So anybody been to that mall in a while? It's kind of dead, hey? It's like there's not much going on. Well, McLeod Development Group actually purchased Millwoods Town Center, and they have some pretty big plans for it. So they're thinking about doing some residential houses, bringing in some commercial, updating the mall, kind of having, similar to Ice District vibes, similar to what they're talking about at the Bonnie Doon Mall, just updating it, bringing people into, the new community that they're bringing about. What I mentioned about, we're going to talk about this, schools and parks. So if you look at the map, when we looked at the first map, we have all of those communities and neighborhoods within the district of Millwoods. And those are schools and parks. And anybody with kids knows, we just took our kids to Hawaii and had a 6.5-hour flight. And that was a lot of packing. I can't imagine like moving my house with a newborn and young kids. So finding tenants who have families, who get their kids integrated in schools, those are super great tenants because they stay long term. Nobody wants to move their kids. So being in areas with lots of schools and lots of parks are huge benefits for you as a landlord. So target locations. So I'm not sure if I don't know if I have a pointer on this thing, but if you take a look, so we have the White Mud at the top, and then we border with the Anthony Henday, and then on our west side, we have 91st Street. So if you're taking a look at the map, the LRT is going to start at Millwoods Town Center. So it's that little brown circle between 23rd Ave and 66th Street. That's Millwoods Town Center. As we head north, that's where the South Valley Line LRT is going. So our first stop is going to be at Millwoods Town Center. Then we have one at about 31st Avenue, close to the hospital. And then we have one about Lee Ridge and Hillview, right in that area. So for myself, if I'm looking at the map and I'm targeting the areas, I usually like to border right around those communities on 66th Street. I usually like to stay above 23rd Avenue, and then I like to stay west of 50th Street. Those are just the general zones that I like to follow. And then if we take a look at the top section, you see Millwoods Golf Course. That's the very nice communities, Greenview, Greenock Crescent, all in there. You have $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 houses in that area as well. So lots of good areas in there. I don't love the locations kind of bordering the Anthony Henday Ring Road. Those are just kind of my sweet spots that I prefer to look at. Each location will have its pros and cons. So common investment opportunities. The nice thing about Millwoods is you have a ton of different types of options. So from our lowest price point, we're going to start with townhouses and half duplexes. So anytime that we want to ensure what type of tenant profile we have, we take a look at that price band and that bracket that we're going to be shopping in, we'll kind of understand the tenant profile that you may get. So in the lower price point zones, you really want to make sure that you're filtering your tenants, you have good property managers who are looking through and making sure you're getting good tenants into your property. These are great starter type of investments, a lot of good options there. Next, which is probably our most common type in Millwoods, is legally or illegally suited homes. This gives us an option to have 2 rental units in one dwelling. Next is side-by-side duplexes and fourplexes. So in Millwoods, we don't see a ton of side-by-side duplexes. And if you do, typically they're individually titled and we see 2 owners owning that. So if you do find one with both owners owning both and you can purchase that, I think they're always great. And then same thing with fourplexes. We don't see a ton of fourplexes out there. Next is townhouse style apartment buildings and general walk-up apartment buildings. Again, not a ton of these. So if you can find them, they're great to add to your portfolio. And you can range for your tenant profile when you're targeting that type of property in Millwoods. Property prices and rents. Close to city average for most types of dwellings. So when we talk about our townhouses, our half duplexes, our duplexes, single family, they're very, very close to our city average. We do find there's pretty big premium on our legally suited homes. They're, about 3-4 years ago, there was a nice little niche cut out in the market for people doing these legally suited properties. A lot of them they were kept in their portfolios. So you didn't see a ton of comparables come on the market, but enough to get some comps if you're doing a BRRRR method. Rents are very consistent. Again, with city averages, you do see a slight bump above city averages in some types of properties, but those premium type products that you're putting to the market, we do see it push the rental rates up. So those are all always really good. So we're going to do a little bit of a case study. We're going to dive into each one. So this is a recent property that a client who had it as a rental for quite some time decided to move it and sell it. So this one is pretty fresh. So this is a 900 square foot townhouse, and it's really well located. It's in that zone that we talked about. 3 beds, 2 baths, and it's got an unfinished basement. So lots of opportunity to expand the property, lots of opportunity to add some value there. When you're looking for townhouses, anything that's condominiumized, we want to ensure our condo fees are low, while still making sure that your reserve fund is stable to hold the property in the complex for some time. Because if you find a property with too high condo fees, it eats away all cash flow that's going to be there. So we have to be really cautious with that. And then purchase price on this one was $153,000. So pretty decent price point if you want to get into your first rental. Illegally suited. So this one is an illegally suited property. So this had a illegal basement suite. It was pretty rough. It needed some work in the basement. So it was 1,100 square feet. Our typical like cookie cutter bungalow style is 3 bedrooms up, 2 bedrooms in the basement, 1 to 1.5 baths up, double detached garage. And that's kind of your standard cookie cutter suited property. Purchase price on this one was pretty good. They got a good deal. It was $295,000, and then it needed about $25,000 to get it up and running. So this is a great way to add to add 2 dwellings, but asterisks on this, there are some risks when you purchase an illegally suited property and you do rent it out. So we can always go through that with you if you have any questions on that. Next is a legally suited property. So there's 2 types of legal suites. So we have a grandfathered in legal suite. So about 2018, 2019, the city of Edmonton said, any suites that are going to be moving forward and getting legalized will need to have 2 heating sources. Okay, so 2 heating sources. They basically set a deadline and said, you can put your permits forward. We'll look at them. We'll grandfather you in on 1 single heating source. And if you didn't get, that deadline, then you had to do 2 heating sources. So this was one with only 1 furnace. So it does change a little bit of your price point zones. So this one was a $425,000 purchase, a little bit outdated compared to like a full-blown renovation, but this one was close to a future LRT. So great value in this one. Cash flow a little bit more because your rents don't typically change too much versus grandfathered in legal suite and a full-blown 2 furnaces legal suite. All the safety things are there. Biggest thing that you're going to be looking at is the biggest common issues is they don't control the heat from up and down, so you can lose some tenants because they get frustrated that it's too cold in the basement or too warm upstairs. So you kind of have to be creative with the tenants that you're dealing with in those situations. Burr. So this is actually a property Rebecca and I purchased about 5-6 years ago. 1,200 square foot bungalow. This one is in Richfield community. This one had an unfinished basement. We paid $300,000 for it. Our renovations were $130,000, and then our after repair value. So we got a third-party appraisal, came in at $470,000, and then we were able to pull out that equity from that. Again, another asterisk on this one. These are some renovation costs that we had a couple of years ago. As we all know, with COVID and inflation and all that fun stuff Devin talked about, it's going to be more than $130,000 if you're going to do a full gut on a property, unless you're Valden and you get smoking deals with your trade people. But one of the biggest things to look for is when you're doing these and you want to keep your renovation costs down, is controlling your CapEx items. So those are going to be the big cost items that you're going to have to pay for from the beginning. So it's going to be roof, windows, high efficiency furnace. If you can have that in the property before you purchase it, it saves you a lot of upfront costs and saves you on that construction item. And you get a good deal on the property. It works quite well. All right, multifamily. So this is a townhouse style property. So this was 2 buildings, 9 units in total. Self-contained units. So this one's always great. You're not sharing laundry. So it has its own furnace, has its own hot water tank, has its own laundry. Everything is self-contained, parking out back. And this one was $170,000 a door. And it traded for about a 5% cap rate. So again, this was a fairly rare find in Millwoods because it tends to be challenging to find multifamily properties in this area. And the things that we looked for in this building, very similar to a single family home, but you want to avoid your CapEx cost. Obviously, if you're buying 9 furnaces, that's going to, add up pretty quick. Same thing with hot water tanks, thing with roofs, same things with windows. You have to multiply everything by 9 and it gets pretty costly. So this property, he ended up doing some renovations, refinancing it, pulling out some cash, and then holding it in his portfolio. All right, conclusion. All right, Millwoods is a region of the city that often gets mislabeled as a neighborhood. So as we discussed, it's actually a district about the size of a small town comprised of many neighborhoods. So this was crazy. If it was a town, it would actually be one of the 5th largest in all of Alberta, which is, I found that pretty unique. Over the last 5 years, more and more young families have been moving into the area in conjunction with developments and renovation of older homes. So as we talked about, we've seen, about 3-4 years ago, that nice little niche of renovated and suited properties come into the area. And combined with upcoming LRT, future large developments, and strong working class of people, it's proving to be a solid long-term investment option. And as we mentioned, there's quite a few options for investors getting in at any sort of price point. So that's it for me. Thank you so much, you guys. If you have any questions, let me know.